All right, hi everyone. Once again, thanks for joining this morning's webinar where we'll talk about Desk Connect and syncing your data between Desk and Salesforce. So we'll get started here. My name is Brian Suh. I'm the onboarding and training specialist here at Desk, and I have here with me Andy and Kevin. Andy, do you want to give a brief introduction of yourself?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Andy Kim. I work within our customer WOW team here, specifically within our professional services team. So I work as a solution consultant, and I help our customer with the implementation process here.
And Kevin?
Hi, I'm Kevin. I work on the support team, which is part of the WOW team here, and generally help customers with any questions they have, including setting up Desk Connect and troubleshooting any issues they have with it.
Thanks, guys. So just to go over some housekeeping items, so the training today, or the session today will last a total of about 45 minutes where we'll go through some slides and kind of talk about the things that you need to know before actually syncing Desk and Salesforce. Following the actual training portion of this of today's webinar, we'll be having a short Q&A. So as the presentation goes on, feel free to type your questions in the GoToWebinar questions panel, and then we'll get all of those questions answered towards the end. And also, our session is being recorded, so if you can't stay with us for the entire time, please check out our YouTube channel where we'll post the webinar today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I'll go ahead and hand it off to Andy, and he'll walk us through a couple of slides here.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. So before we just talk about and actually show you how Desk Connect can be configured on your site, I just actually want to talk about what Desk Connect is for those individuals who have actually never heard about the integration. Desk Connect is our Salesforce integration that's going to allow you to bidirectionally sync information from your customer support application Desk over to your Sales Cloud. And this is actually very important because now you're actually giving a 360 view between your support team and your sales team so that your sales team have the ability to see customer support requests coming from Desk over in Salesforce. Vice versa, it's going to be very important for your support team to be able to see any important contact or account information that exists in Salesforce. I wanted to actually just talk about a couple of the objects that we do map and you're going to actually get to see in Desk Connect. So Kevin, if you go into the next slide, we're going to actually show you these, we're going to talk about the account object. So you have the ability to sync accounts from Salesforce over to your Desk site. Along with your contact and cases, we have the ability to actually sync interactions as well so that your sales team in Salesforce have the ability to see the interaction between your customer support team and your customers as well. What's amazing is you can see cases in Salesforce. So if you're one of those Salesforce administrators that want to run reporting in Salesforce, you do have the ability to run reporting based on the Desk cases that are being synced over to Salesforce. Okay. So why connect sales and service? As mentioned before, we want to give that 360 view of the customer. Your sales team will want to look into your customer's insight and take a look into what type of questions that they're asking. So if there is a high-profile customer and they send in a support case, your sales team actually has the ability to take a look into the types of questions that they're asking. You want to be sensitive around if there's an upgrade opportunity or a buying position that you want to kind of position to the customer. You want to be sensitive about the questions or any issues that your customers are having. You want to make sure that they're first resolved by your support team and position any sales pitch. And if you have account management team using Salesforce to manage specifically accounts and contacts or any customer information, it's going to be great for your account managers to take a look into any of the support cases that their specific accounts are requesting. And for your service team or your customer support team, they have the ability to see important contact and account information that you created in Salesforce. So if they're a top account or if they're a VIP customer, they can see that information. Or if you have some sort of a renewal process for your support process where the customer needs to purchase a 30-day VIP support, you'll be able to pull in that information that exists in Salesforce over to your Desk.com site. So it's really going to help your team understand more about your customers and your accounts that exist in Salesforce. Okay? I want to talk about a couple things or important things to consider before enabling Desk Connect. And some of the important things to consider for pre-enablement, the first thing is you want to make sure that you have Salesforce or Sales Cloud, specifically Professional Edition and above. So if you have a Group Edition, you would want to upgrade to the Professional Edition to get the Salesforce integration up and running with your Desk site. What we're going to go through is Kevin is actually going to show you how we're going to be able to edit a couple important things from the Salesforce side to get this up and running. And the first thing is, what we're going to do is we're going to Salesforce and check the case priority to make sure the pick list values high, medium, low have been added. And then the next field that we're going to check is your case status. We want to make sure in Salesforce that new, open, pending, and resolved and close are the pick list values that have been added. And actually, Kevin is going to be able to demo and show us how to do that after we go through our slides. Next, from the Desk side, you want to make sure that you are on the Desk.com professional plan or above. If you're one of those administrators that aren't sure what sort of plan you're in, you can log into the admin console in Desk and click on the billing tab that's located in the top right corner, and you'll be able to take a look and see what type of plan you have. You also have the ability to contact our support team at support@desk.com, and we'll be able to provide you with that information as well. Next, I'm going to talk about object mapping. I showed you a PowerPoint slide before of the 3 standard objects that we sync from Salesforce. I want to actually talk a little bit more in depth about that. So the Salesforce contact map over to the Desk customer. The Salesforce account map over to the Desk company. And lastly, the Desk case map over to the Salesforce case, so the native case object in Salesforce. Okay. Next, we want to make sure that before we enable Desk Connect, that the case object is displayed or visible within your accounts and context layout, and that's one thing that we're going to check as well. So these are a couple important things to consider for pre-enablement. Okay. In the next slide, we're actually going to talk about important things to consider after enabling Desk Connect. So when we get Desk Connect up and running, we want to let you know that only new or edited records will be synced. Next, you want to make sure that, once again, the case object is displayed in the account and context layout. That's how we do the case mapping. So whenever a Desk case is created on your Desk.com site, we're going to be able to map it over to Salesforce using the standard case object. Okay. I want to talk about the syncing time. So whenever an update happens from your Desk site, it gets instantly updated in Salesforce, meaning when you create a case in Desk, or when our customer sends a new email and Desk creates a new email case, you're going to be able to see that case appear in Salesforce immediately. Whenever your account management or your sales team edit or create a new case in Salesforce or edit a contact or an account, it does take up to 5 minutes, and that is the by design syncing behavior. So if you edit anything from Salesforce, it does take up to 5 minutes to appear within your Desk site. Yeah. Standard field mapping. So like I mentioned, Desk Connect is the bi-directional sync between all 3 standard objects. For your case, we have the ability to map the case status, priority, subject, and description. For your context, we can automatically map the contact name, the title, phone, and email. And for the account, we can automatically sync the account name. We also have the ability to map custom fields. So if you create a custom field in Salesforce, or a case field, or a specific account or contact field, we do have the ability to map that over to your Desk site as well, so that whenever a field has been updated or a custom field has been updated in either system, the information will be synced. And this is actually very important for these mappings, because Desk Connect is actually designed to make sure that informations are up to date in both systems, in both your Sales Cloud and Desk, so that there's no mismatched data whatsoever. I want to actually talk about the important data types that we do map over currently today with Desk Connect. We map over text field, pick list field, checklist field or checkbox field, sorry, and then the date field. If you have fields that, or if you have custom objects and you want to be able to bring that over from Salesforce to Desk, we do have the ability to do that. We won't be covering that during our call today, but we do have our awesome article at support.desk.com. That's our support center, and we do have great knowledge-based content that we're going to actually give you best practice and tips and tricks on how to set up your Salesforce integration. So I highly recommend taking a look into that. Next, you'll notice that after we enable Desk Connect, Salesforce has a unique number for the case number, and Desk, we have a unique case ID number for Desk as well. So a lot of times customers do ask us that, hey, the case number, they're different. Salesforce case number is very different than the Desk case number. We do have the ability to display the Desk case information or the Desk case ID information in Salesforce, and we do have a knowledge-based article on that. And maybe we can open up for any FAQs on it at the very end of our presentation if you have any questions on that. Lastly, and the most important thing, Desk Connect does not count against your Salesforce API limit. So if you're one of those Salesforce administrators that are very conscious about your API limit in Salesforce, Desk Connect is whitelisted in Salesforce. So even though we're making all these information changes and then all these changes are getting updated in Salesforce, we do not count against it, so that we won't count against your API. So that's actually very good to hear, because a lot of times a lot of customers ask, hey, will this hit our API limit? The answer is no, it won't count against your API. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is, that's basically all the PowerPoint presentation slides that we have for you. I know that we talked about it a lot, but actually it's going to be great for you to actually see how the integration is set up, how the syncing is done in that. So I'll hand it over now to Kevin, and Kevin is going to actually walk us through the setup process and show how Desk Connect is set up between both Salesforce and Desk.com. So Kevin, take it away.
Perfect. Thanks, Andy. So I'm going to give you guys a quick walkthrough on setting up Desk Connect, configuring those fields as Andy described, just turning on the integration on the Desk side, and then I'm going to show some of the syncing features and kind of demonstrate, the real-time aspects of Desk Connect. So let me hop out of my presentation here, and let's see here. Okay. All right, so let me hop over here into Salesforce, and I just have a developer account, and I'll be using that to show you guys, kind of the setup. So the first thing you're going to do is check on those custom fields, or the standard fields that are necessary for the integration to be set up. So the first thing you're going to do is go into Setup in Salesforce. And we're going to go over here in this little search bar on the left, and we're going to search for case, and then we're going to click on fields. So these are your case, standard fields and custom fields. And the two fields that are important for setting up the integration are priority and status. So if we go to priority here, Andy mentioned that default priority fields should be low, medium, and high. So that's what I have here. If you don't have them, you'll need to set these up so that these are values that you have available in your priority pick list. So then let's go back to the case fields. You can either just go back or search for cases again. And then we're going to click on status here. And so for status, we're going to want to have the values that match up to the Desk status values. Now, note that you can't change the Desk status values, which is why we have to have corresponding statuses in Salesforce. So we have new, we have open, pending, resolved, and closed. So those are the 5 statuses that you're going to want to have set up in Salesforce so that we can, start setting up the integration. All right, so now that we have those configured, we'll go over to into the admin side of things here in Desk. And we're going to click on Settings here. And there's going to be a Desk Connect option on the left. Now, if you're just getting started with Desk, you may not see this option. And the reason for that is that Desk will have to enable the Desk Connect integration for your account on our end. So if you don't see Desk Connect here, reach out to our support team at support@desk.com or your account executive, and they'll be able to get the ball rolling on enabling Desk Connect for you. All right, so if we click on Desk Connect, if you're just setting it up for the first time, it'll actually take you to a page that sets up the integration. So it would go to integrations and ask you to link up your Salesforce account. And I've already done that. So what you would do is you would just click on Connect to Salesforce, and you would want to be logged into your Salesforce account as the system admin. And then it would ask for permissions, things like that. But so once you've done that, you would just go into Desk Connect and toggle it on here at the top right, and that's going to start the syncing. So before you do that, we would definitely recommend that you look through all of the information here in the webinar or in our help documentation, and make sure that you know exactly what it's going to do before you turn that on, because it'll start syncing right away. All right, so we've turned it on, and let's go over just kind of what you're seeing here. So in the Settings tab in Desk Connect, we have what we call Selective Sync Rules, and we have Company, Customer, and Case, which is the 3 objects that we sync. Now, we'll come back to these in a little bit. I'll show you how those work. And then also we have Field Mappings, which is where you would go to set up the object mappings. So the first thing we want to do is go in here, go to Field Mappings. Along the top we have Company, Customer, and Case. And we would go to Case. And in here, on the left side, you'll see the name of the Salesforce field. And then on the right, in the middle column here, you would see the desk field that you would want to map that to. And so there may or may not be fields here that you can map. We're going to go down to non-configurable fields, which are the default ones. And you can see here that we have status, we have subject, priority, case origin, and description already mapped. So those are the defaults. So what we're going to do is we're going to just make sure that these are set up properly. So I have new mapped to new, I have pending mapped to pending, closed and resolved or mapped to resolved, and then open. All right, so anytime you make a change, you would click on Save here, and that will update your settings. And we're just going to make sure that the rest of the fields are good here. Subject, priority, perfect. We have low, medium, and high. All right, these look good. All right, so now I'm actually going to show you a case syncing over. And so let's go into the next-gen agent. So to get here from the admin, you just click on this menu at the top left, go to next-gen agent, and then it would load up the next-gen. And so here you'll have a list of cases, and if you haven't turned them on, then these may not be synced over yet. And the syncing runs on updates. So anytime a case is updated, you should see it synced over. Let's create a case. And I have a test customer here, Larry, and I'm going to select him as the customer and create a email case. And all right, so now we have the standard case layout. We have the customer information over here on the left. We have the case thread here in the middle, and then the fields for the case details here on the right. Now, so we just created a case. We haven't actually done anything. But if we go into Salesforce and let's update the status here first, or the subject here. We're going to call it Sync to Salesforce. And then we're going to update this case. All right, so now if we go into Salesforce and we look for our cases, we're going to see our case synced over here. And so we have the, title matches up. We have, sync to Salesforce. And from here you can look at, the details on the case. The status is open, and it's linked to the priorities medium. We have the email, all that good stuff. And as you can see, if we go back over here, the minute we make an update in Desk, we should see that synced over here into Salesforce. So I just updated the status from open to pending, and remember I had that mapped to the pending status in Salesforce, and now we see that change here. So let's do a customer update. So we have Larry Baxter here, and say I want to change the title of his customer record because it doesn't match up anymore. So maybe he's become Senior Vice President. So we would add that here, we would update, and then we would come back here and we'd look at, in Salesforce, we'd look at Larry, and now we have the title update that I just made. So as you can see, the Desk Connect is almost immediate from Desk to Salesforce. It's really handy and shows you, your updates in real time, essentially. Now back in Desk, we also have the Salesforce widget, which is it's kind of a window into Salesforce. So if you have things here that you don't want to be able to, you don't necessarily need map, but you want to look at, then this is great for that sort of viewing information. So we have our contact here, we have his email, his full name, his ID, and then we can also show the account name. And you'll notice here that my company in Desk is linked to the account. And that's because, Larry here is linked up to this customer's account. And so if we were to go in here and change the customer name, let's see, test account, and we've updated that, and then we would come in here in Salesforce, and now the account name is updated. All right, so that's generally an overview of how the syncing works. And so what a lot of customers ask us is, we have different case numbers here in Salesforce and in Desk. So in here in Salesforce, the case number is 1061, but in Desk it's 1759. So what we would do for that is we would set up a custom field in Desk and Salesforce, and then sync the case ID over, and so that you would be able to see that information on both sides. So this is a good example of just generally how we would map fields. So if we go in here and we go back to cases in setup, and then we click on fields again, and we have all our standard fields, but then we also have custom fields. And so if you create a custom field here, you would want to create a text field, but I've already created it. So I've called it Desk Case Number. And this is going to house our Desk Case Number in Salesforce. So if we look at this, it's just a regular text type field. It allows 255 characters, and that's all good. And so what we would do is go back into Desk, and we would go and create a custom field on the Desk side. So we go to Cases, Cases, and Custom Fields. And you see I've created a custom field here called Desk Case Number. And we're going to use this to sync over the data from Desk to Salesforce. So it's also a text field, which is great. So then we can map this with the custom field we created. And now if we go to Settings and back to Desk Connect, what we're going to do is we're going to just go to those two fields and map them. So we go to Field Mappings, and then we'll go to the Case tab here, And here's the desk case number. This is the Salesforce version on the left, and then we would select the list here for the desk cases and select desk case number. Perfect. And they're text fields, so there's no other mapping, and we're going to save. All right, and then the final step is we're going to populate the case ID into the custom field we created in Desk. And so what we do is use a case created rule to do that. So if you go to cases and then rules and then case created, these rules run every time a new case is created. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new rule here called set desk case number, or whatever you'd like to call it. And then we're just going to add a rule action to set case desk case number, which is the name of our custom field. And then we're going to use a liquid variable here to populate the case ID, which is just, bracket bracket case dot ID close brackets. All right, so let's enable that, and we're going to update. And then let's go back into the agent, and we're going to create a new case for Larry. Let's be a phone case this time. All right, and so now we have our case number populated into our custom field in Desk. And so let's give this a subject and update that. Now if we go into Salesforce, we should see that case number synced over into our custom field. So if we go to our cases and click on the case we just synced, now we have the desk case number, and it has our desk case ID synced over here. So that's just a general walkthrough on how to pass information between the two systems. Since we do only have a few standard fields that you can sync information back and forth, really a lot of the other information you want to pass is set up through custom fields. So as you can see, we set up a little workflow, a rule here to populate information into a desk case, and then we synced it to Salesforce, and then you're able to view and edit that information on the Salesforce side. And so another common question that we get is how do you sync over the desk assigned agent? So essentially, we would just set up the same process. We would go to Salesforce, we would go to Setup and create a custom field. And I don't have one, but you would just set up one here that would be another text field, and then you would set up another field on the desk side, and then use a rule to populate the information into it. And so that's kind of the general workflow on how these sort of syncing things work out. All right, so that's generally field mapping, and that's kind of passing two custom fields back and forth between Desk and Salesforce. But the other main feature that Desk Connect has is the selective sync. And so if you go to Desk Connect, it'll select settings for you, and in here we have different types of syncing rules that you can set up. So we have company, which syncs to accounts, customers, which syncs to contacts, and then cases, which sync from case to case. And so in here you can turn these off. So say I didn't want any cases to come from Salesforce to Desk, I could just turn that off here. Same with customers. We have Desk to Salesforce. So say you don't want your cases syncing from Desk unless you say so, then here's how we would do that. So we can run the syncing off of conditions, and these work a lot like business rules in that you can set up conditions, and once those conditions are met, then the syncing will occur. So let's add an all condition here, and actually let me go back here, and I'm going to create a custom case field. So if I go to cases and then cases and custom fields, I'm going to create a sync to Salesforce field. And this will just be, simple, yes, no list. And we're going to default this to no, which is the top data value here. So what this means is that once we set up the syncing, is that we'll tell it to sync on yes, and then cases are set to no until an agent manually changes it. So once we have our field, we would go back to the selective sync settings, and we would add an all condition and choose our field from the dropdown. And so now we would say sync to Salesforce is yes. And so we're saying, if this field is set to the value yes, then sync the cases from Desk to Salesforce. Great, and we're going to save that. All right, so now let's go into the agent, and we're going to create yet another case. And we're going to call this one selective sync. And you can see here that sync to Salesforce is set to no. So let's update this one. And we're going to go and just look in Salesforce. And you can see that our recent cases, it doesn't show up here. So that's because we prevented it from syncing with our sync rule. Now if we go into this case and an agent decides, okay, Larry is an important customer, we really want to see his information, case information in Salesforce, then we're going to say, okay, sync to Salesforce is yes, and we want to show this call. Then we'll update that, and then if we go back into Salesforce, we should see the case populate over here. So this essentially gives you control over the process. The integration is very powerful without any checks. Essentially, it will just sync everything back and forth at all times. And this kind of gives you control over, maybe you don't want all the people emailing you as, to sync cases over. This gives you a chance to manually, verify that, hey, this is what I want to see in Salesforce. All right, so those are kind of the two, big setup items that we have for Desk Connect. And so now I'm going to pass it back over to Andy, and we're going to do a little Q&A.
All right, thanks, Kevin. So we have a small group here, so I encourage you guys to send in your questions. We definitely want to make sure that at the end of this session, you guys are more comfortable with Desk Connect and really know kind of the next steps. So I'll go ahead and start reading off some of these questions. Andy and Kevin, feel free to jump in as you guys see fit. First question here, does Desk.com have an environment in which I can test this integration before making changes in production? For example, something like Salesforce's Sandbox.
Yeah, so I can actually answer that question. That's a very great question. This is something that customers do ask us when we help them with enabling Desk Connect. So at the moment, the way how our integration works is we can only integrate with your production Salesforce or a developer edition. At the moment, Desk Connect cannot integrate with the Sandbox environment. So a lot of times what customers would like to do is, obviously for testing purposes, they don't want to integrate with their Salesforce production org to make sure that these test data or testings don't exist in Salesforce. What you can do is you can sign up for a developer edition. It is free. You can sign up for it. Integrated either on a Desk test site, sign up for another trial just to test out the integration. If you feel comfortable after your testing, then we recommend the customers to go through the integration again, but this time add the production org instead.
Okay, great. Next question here, on selective syncing, can you only use custom fields? What about standard fields, for example, priority?
Yeah, so I can also just jump in there as well, and that's a great question. So for selective sync at the moment, we actually only use a custom list value. So whenever you're creating a selective sync workflow from Desk over to Salesforce, we would need to create that custom field as Kevin showed you. And the way how selective sync works is you would need to create it as a list type, like a pick list option. Then you'll be able to use that validation in your selective sync. From Salesforce to Desk, we can actually use the pick list field, the custom field you've created, plus record types. So in Salesforce, if you create a specific case record or contact or an account record, or if you're using person accounts, we have the ability to use record type within Desk as well, or through the Desk Connect integration. So if you have a specific record type that you've created for a contact, we can actually use that within the selective sync from the Salesforce to Desk direction.
Great, thanks. Next question here. We use Classic Agent. Can we use Desk Connect with that?
Yep, yeah. So you can use Classic Agent, yeah.
All right, next one here. If Desk.com cases are merged, how will that be displayed in Salesforce?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Yeah, so Kevin, do you want to take that?
Yeah, so in Desk, when you merge a case, essentially the two old cases still exist. It just closes the one you've merged and moves the interactions to the new case. So in Salesforce, you would still see two cases, and one would be the new case with all the interactions on it, and the old case would just be left as it is. So the merging feature doesn't automatically go over to Salesforce and merge the case for you. So it's really just kind of leaves them how they are in Salesforce.
Okay, great. Next question here. How does Salesforce and Desk know they're syncing the same user/contact? Is the email address the primary identifier?
That's correct. So the way how syncing works is for contact, we use the email address as the primary unique identifier to see, hey, does that email address exist in Desk? If so, are there also a contact in Salesforce as well? If the email address doesn't match, we actually have a secondary unique identifier, which is the phone number. So even though the email address may be blank, we also use the phone number to make sure that, hey, if the Desk customer record has the area code 333 and that phone number in Desk, we also use the phone number as a secondary unique identifier to match that in Salesforce. And that's for the contact syncing. For the account, we actually use the exact account name. So if that account, test account exists in Desk, we'll be able to see if that also account exists in Salesforce and be able to map that over. Okay, great. And maybe, Kevin, you can take this next one. Is there a way to bulk sync records? We'd like to create Desk user accounts for each contact in Salesforce.
Yeah. So essentially, the integration runs anytime the record is updated. So if you don't want to do like a bulk update, if you just as you're using the contacts and accounts, they'll sync over as you use the system. But if you do want to do a bulk update, essentially what you would do is create a new custom field for the contacts or accounts, and then you'd have to use the data loader to export your cases and then make the change to the custom field and then re-upload them into Salesforce. So that process is a little bit tricky. I know it does sound kind of scary to do, but we've had people do it quite often, and it seems to work really well. And Salesforce support can actually help you do that because they have the the resources to walk you through those steps. So if you want to do a bulk update, I would just reach out to Salesforce support, and they can help you with the export and import of the contacts or accounts.
All right, great. We have another question here. What are some common issues people run into when setting up Desk Connect?
Yeah, so I can take that one. So Kevin and I mentioned before, we help our customers with enabling Desk Connect, and I wouldn't say this would be an issue, but there's just a lot of information that we can offer to your business using Desk Connect, and there's a lot of sort of like setups and syncing behaviors to note about. And what Kevin showed you could be a lot of information for a new time administrator, either from the Desk side or the Salesforce side. So I wouldn't say it's an issue, but a lot of the ask is, how do we really set up Desk Connect to your business needs? If you're a business that uses personal accounts, how do we set up that workflow and integration that meets your integration needs? And a lot of times it's just questions of, hey, how do we make sure that we set up X, Y, Z through the integration so that only specific accounts or contacts get updated from Salesforce to Desk? So it's a lot of times it's questions around the configuration itself, and our customer WOW team does an amazing job with answering and helping you with that type of question. So if you have any questions, we did an amazing session today, and we actually showed you a lot of information as well. If you have questions that are specific towards your business, say that, hey, I want to set up these types of validation through the integration, either from Desk or Salesforce using Desk Connect, feel free to reach out to us. You can give us a call, or we'll be more than happy to set up another go-to-meeting session just to kind of give you an insight on a sort of more on a one-on-one basis to give you the right recommendations.
Okay, great. Another question here. Does Desk.com follow access levels set for fields in Salesforce contacts? For example, one of our contact types is non-editable.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So just reading that, so Desk.com follows access levels set for fields for the Salesforce context. So the way how it works is we do throw off validation error. And so Kevin just showed you how any updates happening from Desk.com does go over to Salesforce. However, if you have a specific validation created from the Salesforce side, for an example, a contact cannot be created in Salesforce unless an account is created as well, or unless it's tied to a contact, we're going to be able to recognize the validation you created in Salesforce and be able to actually log that within the system log. So Kevin, so right now you're seeing the settings screen within the admin console, but when Kevin clicks on the system log on the left-hand side, that's where we're going to be able to capture any errors. We're going to be able to observe any errors happening on your Desk site. So if you see that there is an error in Salesforce, we're going to be able to log it, and you as a Desk administrator will be able to see that within the system log here.
Okay, great. Another question here. When contact/customer records are synced and part of the record conflicts, example, Desk has one phone number for customer, but Salesforce has another. What happens to those records in the two systems?
Yeah, I can talk about that one. So when, say, someone emails you or calls in about Larry calls in and has a case is created on the Desk side. If they're already linked, then the information should match, and so a lot of that is taken care of by the initial sync. But say they're not synced over, and then say Larry wasn't synced and he emailed you and the agent set the phone number to a new value that didn't match what you had in Salesforce, then that update would be synced to Salesforce. And so you really have to be aware of how your information is being passed, and make sure that your agents are careful about what sort of information they're pushing over and what they're updating on the Desk side, because essentially once the integration is set up, the records are the same. They're the same record. And so if you're updating things in Desk, it's going to sync over to Salesforce. And so you really have to be careful about what sort of information you're editing in Desk, and just make sure your agents know what to do when a new case is created or a new customer is created.
Okay, great. And it looks like we're at the end of our session here. I'm going to go ahead and post this video to our Desk.com YouTube channel. So you can watch it there this afternoon just to kind of rewatch the demo or go through the PowerPoint as well. Also, if you guys do have any other questions, we have a lot of great content in terms of articles on our support site, support@Desk.com. Also, as Andy mentioned, if you guys do have specific questions about your business or specific workflows, then please feel free to reach out to support@desk.com as well. Andy and Kevin, thank you for joining here today. And thank you, everyone, for joining. And we hope that you guys are very successful with Desk Connect. Thank you, everyone. Take care.